The message came unexpectedly, and it wasn't one that could be ignored. A signal, originating from the outer reaches of the solar system, made its way to Earth, carrying a code too advanced to be a product of human hands. It wasn't a distress call or a warning. It was a greeting, an invitation to meet, to learn, and to collaborate. It took weeks for Earth's leading scientific minds to decode the message, and when they finally understood its content, the world was stunned. Humanity wasn't alone. The Arax, a species from a distant system, had reached out, offering peace, knowledge, and a shared future. Their communication was careful, calculated, and strangely familiar. They had been observing humans for years, learning their languages, understanding their cultures, and now they were ready to establish contact. Dr. Eileen Rotha, head of the United Nations Interstellar Committee, was the first to greet the Arax on behalf of humanity. She stood in the sterile, white-lit room of Gateway Station, Earth's largest space outpost, orbiting close to Mars. Alongside her were representatives from various global powers, military, diplomatic, and scientific leaders, all gathered to witness this moment. The weight of the occasion was not lost on her, but her sharp eyes betrayed no nervousness. The Arax ship, sleek and gleaming with an opalescent sheen, docked smoothly at the station. Unlike anything humanity had built, it radiated an aura of organic design, as if it was grown rather than constructed. When the hatch opened, the Arax emissary stepped through. Tall, with elongated limbs and soft, luminescent skin, the Arax resembled something out of an ancient Earth legend, a being both alien and strangely beautiful. Their leader, Corrales, bowed deeply as a sign of respect, a gesture they had learned through their years of study. "We are here to share what we know," Corrales said, their voice resonating through the air in perfect English, though its tone carried an otherworldly resonance that was both calming and commanding. "There is much we can offer, and much we wish to learn from your kind. Let this be the start of something greater than either of us has ever known." The early months after the first contact were filled with optimism. The Arax shared advanced technology, helping Earth solve some of its most pressing problems: climate control, renewable energy, and even early steps toward faster-than-light travel. The exchange was not one-sided. Humanity, with its boundless curiosity and creativity, contributed new ideas to the Arax, especially in the fields of medicine and cultural expression. Together, they explored the possibilities of a future where two species worked in harmony. But beneath the surface of this collaboration, subtle cracks began to form. It started with small disagreements, interpretations of shared knowledge, differing approaches to technological development. Where humans sought adaptability and rapid innovation, the Arax favored control and precision. There were moments of tension in meetings, where a smile masked frustration, where a suggestion came across as an ultimatum. But for the sake of peace, both sides pushed these conflicts aside. After all, no alliance is perfect. Yet, the deeper cause for concern came from those who weren't in the room. While most of the human population celebrated the arrival of the Arax, not everyone trusted them. Rumors began to circulate about the true motives of the aliens. Were they really here to help, or were they positioning themselves for something more sinister? General Alden, a decorated officer in the Earth Defense Coalition, was one of the loudest voices of dissent. He had seen what happened when Earth placed too much trust in forces they didn't fully understand. History was littered with broken treaties and backstabbing alliances. "It's too soon," Alden would often say in high-level security briefings. "We're putting everything we've built in the hands of a species we've known for less than a year. The Arax might seem peaceful, but that could change the moment we stop being useful." Dr. Rotha, however, remained a staunch advocate for cooperation. She believed that fear of the unknown had held humanity back for too long. The Arax were different, yes, but difference wasn't a threat. It was an opportunity to push the boundaries of what humanity could achieve, together. For a time, the Alliance held joint expeditions to distant planets, shared research facilities, and cultural exchanges all painted a picture of growing unity. Children on Earth learned about the Arax in their history lessons, and in return, human music and art found their way into Arax society. The partnership appeared to be thriving. But then, things began to shift. It started with whispers among the Arax, concerns that the humans were progressing too quickly, moving too fast with the knowledge they had been given. Corrales often found himself defending the humans to his own council, reminding them that Earth was still young, still learning. But not all Arax agreed with his views. Some believed that humanity's unyielding drive for progress, for power, was dangerous. The final straw came with the disappearance of Captain Marcus Theron, one of Earth's top diplomats, during a routine mission to an Arax research station. Official reports claimed that his shuttle had malfunctioned, but the circumstances were murky at best. Earth demanded answers, but the Arax, unusually silent, gave none. The alliance that had once seemed unshakable was now showing signs of decay. Weeks passed since the mysterious disappearance of Captain Marcus Theron. Official investigations on both sides continued, but the silence grew heavier, like a storm cloud on the horizon. The once open and fluid communication between Earth and the Arax began to stutter. Meetings that had once been full of eager exchanges became strained, with fewer representatives on both sides. The Arax, usually warm in their responses, had grown distant. The human diplomats, led by Dr. Eileen Ratha, fought hard to maintain the fragile partnership, but beneath their carefully crafted statements, doubt was festering. Earth's media caught wind of the situation quickly. News outlets spread rumors and speculation like wildfire. Was the Arax alliance crumbling? The question appeared on every screen, in every corner of the planet. Panic gripped the public, and soon, protests erupted. People marched through the streets, demanding transparency. Some called for war. Others pleaded for caution. But the most chilling cries came from those who questioned whether humanity had ever truly understood the Arax. General Alden, always skeptical of the Arax, now had the leverage he needed. His warnings were proving true, or so it seemed. He pressed the Earth Defense Coalition to increase surveillance on all Arax activities within human territories. "We've been complacent," Alden said in a closed briefing with Earth's top leaders. "The Arax are more advanced than we ever imagined, and we've allowed them into our space, into our systems. It's time we take control of the situation before they do." Behind the scenes, Alden wasn't the only one preparing for the worst. Earth's military had started repositioning fleets closer to key strategic locations, cloaked under the guise of routine drills. Meanwhile, a growing faction within the United Nations Interstellar Committee, led by Ambassador Neera Katyal, began pushing for more aggressive diplomatic actions. "We cannot let the Arax control the narrative," she argued. "We need answers, and if they won't give them to us willingly, we'll have to take them." On the Arax side, things were not much better. Corrales, once the staunch advocate for peace, was facing pressure from his own council. The Arax leadership was fractured. While some, like Corrales, believed in continuing the peaceful collaboration with humans, others, such as Zathran, a powerful figure among the Arax militarists, were calling for more assertive measures. Zathran had long suspected that humans were reckless, their rapid growth unsustainable, and now, with the mounting tensions, he saw his chance to take control of the situation. "We have given them too much," Zathran said during a heated council session. "Humans are chaotic by nature. They take what they want without understanding the consequences. We must act before they turn their ambitions toward us." Corrales fought to maintain the balance, but his influence was waning. Trust, once so carefully nurtured between the two species, was crumbling under the weight of suspicion. The Council authorized tighter restrictions on human access to Arax facilities and research data. Diplomatic efforts continued, but they were half-hearted at best. The sense of mutual respect that had once defined their relationship was being replaced by distrust. Tensions escalated further when a series of unexplained incidents began to occur. First, a human trade ship disappeared near the Arax border. Then, several Arax communication relays went offline without explanation. Both sides blamed the other, and diplomatic talks, already fragile, began to collapse. Earth demanded an immediate inquiry into the lost ship, accusing the Arax of foul play, while the Arax Council, led by Zathran's growing faction, pointed to human sabotage. The final blow to peace came 1 month later. During what should have been a routine escort mission for an Arax diplomatic convoy, an Earth Defense Coalition destroyer, ESS Alistair, was attacked and destroyed by unknown forces. The Arax were quick to deny responsibility, but the evidence was damning. debris from an Arax missile was found among the wreckage. The humans, enraged and betrayed, saw it as an act of war. The Arax, for their part, insisted they had nothing to do with it, claiming that rogue elements or external forces must have been involved. But it was too late. The damage was done. The streets of Earth were filled with cries for retaliation. General Alden, now a central figure in Earth's military response, delivered a speech that echoed across the globe. For too long, we have placed our trust in outsiders, in those we do not fully understand. They have betrayed that trust, and now we must defend our home. There can be no peace where there is deceit. Behind the scenes, even Dr. Rotha found it difficult to argue against the mounting evidence. She had always believed in the potential of the Arax alliance, but now she wasn't so sure. There was too much at stake to ignore the growing list of accidents, miscommunications, and outright hostility. Something had shifted, something fundamental. Within days, the Earth Defense Coalition declared the alliance with the Arax void. All Arax envoys and personnel were expelled from human space, and military forces were mobilized across key sectors of the solar system. The once bright vision of a shared future had been consumed by mistrust and fear. Yet as Earth and the Arax prepared for what seemed an inevitable conflict, a few still whispered of other possibilities. Some wondered whether there was something or someone behind all this, manipulating both sides from the shadows. But with the drums of war beating louder, those voices were soon drowned out by the relentless march toward violence. The peace was dead, the alliance was shattered, and now the storm was coming. The declaration of war came without ceremony. Both Earth and the Arax had crossed a point of no return. Diplomatic channels were severed, and fleets mobilized in silence across both star systems. Tensions, once simmering, had reached a boiling point, and the first shots were fired in the cold, unfeeling vacuum of space. Admiral Juno Tavros stood on the command bridge of the ES Resolute, Earth's most advanced warship, gazing at the tactical display hovering in front of her. She had never wanted war. She had fought to avoid it, just as Dr. Rotha had. But the Arax had left them no choice. The destruction of the Alistair and the disappearance of Captain Theron had been the final blows to an alliance that was already on life support. "We're receiving final confirmation from the Coalition, Admiral," her communications officer reported. "Orders are clear. Engage at will." Tavros clenched her fists at her sides. For years, she had been part of the peacekeeping efforts, believing in humanity's ability to cooperate with the Arax, to build something greater. Now, it was all dust. "Prepare all squadrons for combat," she ordered, her voice firm, though inside she felt a wave of frustration, even grief. The hopes of peace were long gone, replaced by the cold reality of war. Across the system, Arax forces mirrored Earth's readiness. Their ships, organic in design and bristling with alien weaponry, hovered near the edges of human-controlled space, their engines glowing faintly. At the head of their fleet stood Commander Eloran Zathran, the rising star of the Arax militarist faction, and the very man who had pushed for conflict from the beginning. Where Keralis had sought cooperation, Zathran had seen only opportunity for domination. And now, with the humans exposed and vulnerable, he was ready to strike. The first battle was a brutal exchange near Vega 7, a contested region on the edge of Arax-controlled space. The human fleet, led by the ES Resolute, engaged with precision and fury, while Arax ships responded with devastating, graceful maneuvers. The Arax had superior technology, but humanity had something they did not: desperation. The fighting was relentless. Missiles tore through the blackness of space, plasma beams cutting through hulls as if they were paper. The Arax ships were nimble, striking fast and retreating just as quickly, but the human fleet was larger, more determined, driven by an anger that could not be quelled. Admiral Tavros issued orders with cold efficiency, watching as entire squadrons clashed and disintegrated under the Arax barrage. "Fire!" she shouted as the Arax capital ship Talus came within range. The Resolute unleashed its full arsenal, pounding the Arax defenses with every weapon available. Explosions lit up the battlefield, the Arax ship staggering under the assault but refusing to fall. Zathran, aboard the Talus, directed his fleet with a chilling calm, issuing counter-orders, flanking the human ships with precise strikes. Yet, as the battle raged, something became clear to Tavros. Despite the Arax's superior technology, they were hesitant. Their attacks were calculated, but there was no overwhelming push to crush the humans. Why? Tavros scanned the battle, her eyes narrowing. The Arax had the power to wipe out half her fleet if they truly wanted to, but they weren't. Was it possible that even now, some part of their leadership still wanted to avoid full-scale destruction? The battle ended in a tactical stalemate, both sides withdrawing to regroup, licking their wounds. But it was clear, this was just the beginning. Humanity had held the line, but for how long? And why had the Arax not pressed their advantage? Admiral Tavros was no fool. She knew there was something more at play. Meanwhile, back on Earth, political tensions were as volatile as the front lines. General Alden had assumed command of all military operations, pushing for an all-out offensive. He saw this war as inevitable, a chance to prove that humanity could not be dominated by any external force. But behind his war rhetoric, a darker agenda simmered. He had long believed that humanity's destiny lay not in cooperation, but in conquest. The Arax had given him the perfect pretext to push forward his militaristic vision. Dr. Rotha, however, had become a ghost in these new corridors of power. Where once she had been the face of humanity's outreach to the Arax, now she was sidelined, her warnings of caution ignored. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the conflict than simple miscommunication and distrust. She had spent years learning the Arax's ways, their culture, their behavior, and something about this war felt wrong. Rotha began her own investigation into the events that had triggered the breakdown of peace. Digging into the classified reports surrounding Captain Theron's disappearance and the destruction of the Alistair, she uncovered inconsistencies. There were details in the military logs that didn't add up, encrypted transmissions that hadn't been accounted for, unusual energy readings from the debris of the destroyed ship. The deeper she looked, the more convinced she became that this war hadn't been inevitable. It had been orchestrated. But by whom? The Arax? Or perhaps something else? Across the galaxy, the Arax were also struggling with similar questions. Though marginalized within his own council, still held sway among the more diplomatic factions of Arax leadership. He had never believed in Zathran's push for war, and as the conflict escalated, he became more certain that something else was driving them toward this destruction. Like Dr. Rotha, Corrales began quietly investigating the events that had led to this disastrous second contact, and what he found sent chills through him. Hidden deep within the Arax archives, Corrales unearthed ancient records from millennia ago. They spoke of a long-forgotten race, the Vren, a civilization that had once spanned the stars but had vanished without a trace. According to these records, the Vren had mastered technologies far beyond even the Arax or humanity, including the ability to manipulate minds and bend reality itself. The Vren had not been wiped out, as history suggested, but had gone into hiding, their influence persisting across the stars in the form of subtle manipulations. Could it be that the Vren were behind the sudden breakdown of peace between the Arax and humanity? Corrales couldn't deny the possibility. If the Vren still existed, they had every reason to drive a wedge between the two species, sowing chaos and division to maintain control from the shadows. The war wasn't a mistake, it was a trap, one carefully laid long before the humans or Arax even realized they were in danger. But now, both species were caught in the web, and with each passing day, the chances of unraveling it grew smaller. As the Arax and humans prepared for the next inevitable confrontation, Corrales reached out secretly to Dr. Rotha. If they could work together again, in secret, perhaps they could expose the truth before it was too late. But with war raging on both sides, any alliance now would be seen as treason. Still, they had no choice. The future of both their peoples depended on it. The war continued to tear through the galaxy like a wildfire, leaving both human and Arax fleets battered, but neither side willing to relent. Battles that once involved strategic maneuvers and measured attacks devolved into relentless firefights driven by anger, fear, and the desire for survival. Yet amid the chaos, Admiral Tavros and Corrales worked in secret, determined to uncover the truth that could change everything. Dr. Eileen Ratha had always been skeptical of conspiracy theories, but the evidence before her was undeniable. The strange anomalies surrounding Captain Theron's disappearance, the erratic energy readings from the destroyed Alastair, and now the ancient records Corrales had sent her. All of it pointed to something far more sinister than a simple breakdown in diplomacy. The Vren were real, and they had been manipulating the conflict from the start. But this wasn't just manipulation, it was control. Rotha stared at the holographic interface in her private lab, her mind racing. The Vren had mastered technologies that could bend perception, alter reality itself. They could make people see, hear, and even feel things that weren't there. If the Vren were behind the recent events, then humanity and the Arax were nothing but puppets in a grander darker scheme. Admiral Tavros, Rotha said over the secure line, her voice tinged with urgency, "We need to act now. If we don't expose this soon, it won't matter who wins this war. Both sides will be destroyed." Tavros, sitting in her command chair aboard the Resolute, nodded grimly. "I've already seen signs of it myself, Doctor. This war isn't playing out the way it should. The Arax, at least some of them, are holding back, and so are we. Something's keeping us from going all out, and I'm starting to think it's not just strategy." "You're right," Ratha replied. "It's them. The Vren. They've been manipulating both sides. They want us to destroy each other while they watch from the shadows." Tavros gritted her teeth. "Then how do we stop them? We can't exactly walk into the UN and say we're under the influence of an ancient alien race without getting laughed out of the room." "We don't have to tell them. We just need to prove it," Rotha said. "I'm working on decrypting more data from the Arax archives. Corrales has provided me with some key information, but it's risky. If anyone finds out what we're doing—" "I'll handle the risk," Tavros interrupted. "Keep working. I'll buy us time on the front lines." Meanwhile, Corrales was facing his own challenges. Within the Arax Council, the militarist faction, led by Commander Zathran, had grown stronger, pushing for more aggressive tactics. Zathran's influence now stretched across nearly every Arax fleet, and he was preparing for a decisive strike that would cripple human defenses once and for all. To him, the humans were nothing more than a temporary obstacle, a species whose ambition had led them to overreach. Now, it was time to end them. But Corrales knew that an outright victory for the Arax wouldn't save them. The Vren didn't care who won. They were playing both sides against each other, feeding on the chaos, and Zathran's thirst for conquest was only making it easier for them. "We have to stop Zathran," Corrales said during a clandestine meeting with his loyalists. "He's blind to the real enemy. If he launches this final offensive, it will give the Vren exactly what they want: total war, total destruction." One of his allies, Morales, shook her head. "How do we stop him? The Council is with him now. They see humans as a threat, and Zathran is their answer." "We need proof," Corrales said. "Proof that we're all being used." "That won't be easy to come by," Morales replied. "And even if we find it, will anyone listen?" "We don't have a choice," Corrales said. "I've already sent information to my contact on the human side. If we can coordinate an effort to expose the Vren, we might just turn this war around before it's too late." But Zathran was growing impatient. He had no time for Corrales' diplomatic games. From his vantage aboard the Arax command ship Tyros, he prepared his forces for the final blow. Human forces had been stretched thin, their defenses weakened. Now was the time to strike, to eradicate them once and for all. "We will not hesitate," Zathran declared to his officers. "The humans had their chance. They have shown their true nature. They cannot be trusted. Prepare the fleets for the full assault." The moment of reckoning came when both the human and Arax fleets amassed near Proxima D4, a barren system where countless battles had already taken place. This would be the final showdown, the clash that would decide the future of both species. Admiral Tavros stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching as the Arax ships lined up in formation. "There's no turning back now," she muttered, watching the tactical display flash with incoming data. The Arax fleet was larger than anything humanity had ever faced before. It was clear that Zathran had committed his full might to this offensive. "Admiral, incoming communication from Dr. Rotha," her communications officer reported. Tavros opened the channel immediately. "What have you got for me, Ratha?" "We've cracked the encryption," Ratha said breathlessly. "The Vren, they've been behind this from the beginning. They manipulated the Arax Council, orchestrated the attack on the Alastair, and planted false evidence to make both sides think the other was responsible. Tavros's jaw tightened. So it's true, but how do we stop them? There's a signal, Ratha continued. A control signal that's being broadcast across both fleets. It's what's fueling the escalation. We need to shut it down. If we can do that, we might be able to break the Vren's hold on both sides. Tavros didn't hesitate. How long do you need? I'm already working on it, Ratha replied, but it won't be easy. We need to get closer to the source of the signal. At that moment, the Arak's fleet began its advance. Admiral, her tactical officer warned, they're moving in. Tavros knew she had to act fast. Hold position, she ordered. Buy Ratha some time. Across the battlefield, Keralis was making his own move. Secretly, he had arranged for a small fleet to slip away from Zathran's forces, their mission to locate the Vren's signal generator. If they could destroy it, perhaps the illusion of war would crumble. But time was running out. Zathran's full offensive was minutes away from launch, and Keralis had to act before his species made an irreversible mistake. As the human and Arak ships inched closer to full engagement, the tension in space became palpable. Every soldier, every pilot, every commander on both sides knew that this was it, the endgame. And yet in the quiet corners of their minds, some of them felt an unease they couldn't explain, a subtle pull that made them question their very actions. It was the Vren, exerting their ancient power, pushing the final pieces into place for total destruction. But Rath and Keralis weren't giving up. In a desperate gamble, they worked to pinpoint the source of the signal. It was hidden deep within the ruins of Velnar, an ancient site near Proxima D4, once thought to be lifeless, but now revealing its dark secrets. As the first volleys of fire exchanged between the two fleets, Ratha's voice crackled over Tavros's comms. We've found it. The signal's coming from a Vren installation on Velnar. We need to destroy it, now. Tavros turned to her crew. Divert the fleet. Target the coordinates Dr. Ratha is sending. This is our last shot. The fleets moved with deadly precision, both human and Arak's forces clashing in an explosive ballet of destruction. The once silent void of space was filled with the glow of plasma beams, missile trails, and the deadly flashes of warships erupting into fire. But amidst the chaos, Admiral Juno Tavros had one goal: the Vren signal generator hidden on the desolate surface of Velnar. Destroying it was their only chance of breaking free from the manipulations that had driven both sides to this point. Coordinates locked, her tactical officer confirmed. The signal generator is heavily shielded. This won't be easy. Tavros gritted her teeth, her eyes focused on the battlefield before her. It doesn't matter how hard it is. If we don't take it out, everything ends here. On the Arak's command ship Tyros, Commander Zathran was fully committed to annihilating the humans. His forces pressed the attack with overwhelming power, but even as they gained ground, he couldn't shake a feeling of unease. It was as if something was pulling at the edge of his consciousness, a nagging voice that whispered of doubts and half-formed fears. But Zathran had long buried his doubts beneath ambition and pride. "We will crush them," Zathran barked to his officers. "Full assault." Yet in the back of his mind, something told him that this wasn't the right path, that someone else was pulling the strings. But he had ignored that voice for too long, and now it was too late. Meanwhile, Keralis led a small strike force of loyal Arak ships toward the surface of Velnar. His heart pounded as his ship's engines roared to life, descending into the planet's atmosphere. The Vren ruins loomed below, massive and ancient, a reminder of a once great empire that had fallen into shadow. He had uncovered the truth about the Vren too late to stop the war's outbreak, but he would not be too late to end it. "Prepare for ground assault," Keralis ordered. "We'll need to breach the facility and take down the signal manually." Morales, his most trusted officer, nodded. "Zathran's forces are on our tail. If they catch us before we reach the generator, this is over." "I know," Keralis said, gripping his console. "But this is the only chance we've got." As Keralis' fleet closed in on Velnar, the human fleet, led by Admiral Tavros, diverted from the main battle to focus all firepower on the planet's surface. The Vren signal generator was well protected, hidden deep within the ruins, but they had to try. On the bridge of the ESS Resolute, Tavros watched as her ship's cannons lit up the desolate terrain below. Every strike that hit the ruins sent tremors through the planet's surface, but the generator remained untouched beneath layers of ancient shielding. "We're not getting through," her weapons officer reported, frustration in his voice. "We have to," Tavros shouted. "Focus fire on the southern quadrant. We're running out of time." On the surface of Velnar, Keralis and his team touched down near the ruins. The air was thick with dust and the oppressive weight of history. The ruins stretched out before them, jagged and ancient, like the bones of some long-dead beast. But Keralis had no time to admire the sight. He could feel the Vren's presence here, an unseen force watching, waiting. "We need to move fast," Keralis said as he led his team toward the signal generator's entrance. "Once we're inside, we'll only have a few minutes to disable the core." They reached the entrance, a massive stone door carved with the intricate designs of the Vren. Keralis placed his hand on the surface, and it responded with a low hum, slowly opening to reveal the darkened interior of the facility. The walls were lined with strange symbols, glowing faintly as if aware of their presence. The technology inside was alive in a way Keralis had never seen before. As they moved deeper into the facility, Morales spoke quietly. "Do you feel it? This place, it's not right." "I feel it," Keralis replied. "The Vren are still here in some form. This is their last weapon, the last piece of their legacy." They finally reached the core chamber. The generator stood before them, a towering structure pulsing with dark energy, its tendrils connected to the planet's very lifeblood. Keralis knew that destroying this would not be easy. It had been designed to outlast time itself. "Plant the charges," Keralis ordered. "We'll bring this place down." As Keralis and his team worked frantically to disable the generator, the battle above reached a fever pitch. Human and Arak ships clashed in a desperate struggle for dominance, but as the fighting intensified, more and more pilots on both sides began to feel the same unease, the same sense that something was off. Admiral Tavros, watching the carnage unfold, felt it too. "This isn't right," she muttered. "It's like we're all being pulled towards something." "Admiral, Arak's ships are converging on the planet's surface," her tactical officer reported. "It looks like they're targeting the ruins." Tavros's heart raced. "That's Keralis. He's going for the generator." "Should we engage?" "No," Tavros said firmly. "Let them work. If they take down that signal, this war might just end." As Keralis' team planted the last of the charges, they felt a deep, vibrating pulse emanate from the generator. The Vren's influence was growing stronger, pushing against their minds, trying to force them to stop. But Keralis would not be swayed. "They're trying to fight us," Morales said, her voice strained. "They know we're here." "Then we finish it," Keralis barked. With the charges set, they made their way out of the chamber, racing toward their ship as the countdown ticked down. The Vren's presence grew heavier with each passing second, their ancient will pressing down on the minds of both human and Arak soldiers above. It was as if the entire planet was crying out in one final effort to hold on to its dark influence. The moment came in an instant. The charges detonated, and the Vren signal generator collapsed in on itself, sending shockwaves across the surface of Velnar. Above, in the midst of the battle, the effect was immediate. The oppressive pull that had driven both sides into relentless conflict suddenly lifted, like a veil being torn away. The soldiers, pilots, and commanders on both sides felt it, an overwhelming sense of clarity, of release. Admiral Tavros watched as the Arak ships slowed their advance. The human fleet did the same. It was as if, for the first time in months, both sides could breathe again. "The signal's down," her communications officer confirmed. "We've lost all Vren interference." Tavros let out a long breath, her mind racing to comprehend what had just happened. "Cease fire," she ordered. "Broadcast it to all ships. The war is over." On the Arak side, Commander Zathran's eyes widened as he felt the weight lift from his mind. He staggered back from his console, suddenly aware of how deeply he had been manipulated. For the first time in months, he saw the humans not as enemies, but as victims, just like his people. "We've been used," Zathran whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. "All of us." As the fleets withdrew, the ruins of Velnar smoldered, the last remnants of the Vren's ancient power crumbling into dust. Keralis stood aboard his ship, watching the destruction from orbit, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what they had narrowly avoided. Beside him, Morales spoke softly. "It's over. But the damage can be repaired, Corrales said, though he knew it would take time. We've been manipulated for too long, but we're free now. And on Earth, Dr. Eileen Ratha sat in her office, staring out at the stars, knowing that the path to peace would be difficult. But at least now, it was a path they could walk together, no longer in the grip of an invisible enemy. The Vren had tried to turn them against each other, but in the end, it was humanity's resilience and the determination of their allies that saved them from the brink of annihilation. And so the war ended, not with a final victory or a grand celebration, but with a quiet understanding that the true battle had never been between Earth and the Arax. It had been a war for the freedom to choose their own destiny.